Cowboys Nation, this changes everything. The Dallas Cowboys schedule just dropped, and we need to break down exactly what this means for America's team in 2025. From brutal stretches that could make or break the season to potential trap games lurking in the shadows, this schedule is absolutely loaded with storylines. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and turn on those notifications because we're bringing you daily Cowboys updates and breaking news you cannot afford to miss. Let's dive into this because what I'm about to tell you has massive implications for the Cowboys' playoff hopes and Super Bowl aspirations. So we're getting deep into the mailbag today, and Cowboys fans are fired up about this schedule. One of the most important questions that keeps coming up is about the bye week. And let me tell you, this is way more critical than most people realize. When you look at the Cowboys' schedule at first glance, you don't see that same murderous stretch of brutal games packed into a short period like we've seen in some previous years. The difficult matchups are actually spread out pretty evenly across the schedule, which on the surface sounds like good news for Dallas. But here's where it gets really interesting. The first 7 weeks of the season are going to be absolutely brutal. We're talking about a gauntlet that will test this team early and often. However, and this is crucial, the back half of the schedule has more built-in rest and recovery time, which could be the difference between limping into the playoffs or hitting January football with momentum. Now let's talk about the bye week situation, because this is where coaching decisions and NFL scheduling can literally determine your season. If you're asking me to choose between an early bye week and a late bye week, I'm taking the late bye every single time, and it's not even close. Think about it like this. Nobody wants a bye week in week 6 and then has to grind through 11 straight games to finish the season. Your body breaks down. The players are exhausted. Injuries pile up. You're running on fumes by week 15, week 16, week 17, when games matter most. The human body just isn't built to handle that kind of punishment without a break. Now, should the NFL have 2 bye weeks at this point anyway? Absolutely. The league is printing money. They're expanding internationally. They're adding more games. Give the players 2 bye weeks. Let them recover. Let them heal. But until that happens, we've got to work with what we've got, and having that bye week later in the season is infinitely more valuable than having it early. Here's the reality, though. In the grand scheme of things, the bye week timing isn't going to single-handedly destroy the Cowboys' season. It's manageable. There are plenty of tough games on this schedule, but that's just life in the National Football League. Every single team faces adversity. Every single team has a brutal stretch. That's what makes the NFL the most competitive league in the world. You've got to navigate it, adjust, and overcome. But now we need to talk about the trap games, because Cowboys fans are already spotting them on the calendar, and they're absolutely right to be concerned. The Tennessee Titans game is setting up as a classic letdown spot. You've got the San Francisco 49ers right before, and the Philadelphia Eagles on Thanksgiving right after. That's a sandwich nobody wants to be in. You're looking ahead to divisional rival Philadelphia on the biggest stage, Thanksgiving Day, national television, the whole country watching. It's so easy to overlook Tennessee in that spot. And let me throw another one at you, the Arizona Cardinals game. This one comes right after playing the Eagles on Monday Night Football. You're dealing with a short week already, minus 1 day of rest compared to a normal week, plus travel to Arizona. That is a recipe for disaster if the Cowboys aren't mentally locked in. Here's what drives everyone crazy, though. We all get frustrated when letdown games happen, and we absolutely should. It's infuriating to watch your team lose a game they should win, but let's be honest with ourselves for a second. Every team does this. Unless you go undefeated, which basically never happens, every team drops at least one game they shouldn't lose. That's just football. That's sports. That's why they call it any given Sunday. The flip side is also true. You'll probably steal a game you have no business winning unless you're a truly terrible team. These things balance out over the course of a season. The question for the Dallas Cowboys is, how many of these letdown games can they avoid, and how many games can they steal that they're not supposed to win? That ratio right there will determine whether Dallas is watching the playoffs from home or making a deep January run. Some fans are projecting 6 wins by week 8, with Tennessee being the only victory in that brutal week 9 through week 13 stretch. If you knock off 1 or 2 wins for fan bias, which honestly every fan base does, you're still looking at a potential wild card spot as the worst case scenario. And here's the kicker. If the Cowboys somehow find a way to beat both the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers, Brian Schottenheimer is going to be a legitimate lock for Coach of the Year. Think about what that would mean. Schottenheimer taking over a team in transition, beating 2 teams that have absolutely owned Dallas in recent years, especially in the postseason. That would be a statement heard across the entire league. Speaking of Schottenheimer, let me ask you this. Where do you rank him among NFL head coaches right now? Try to take the fan bias out of it if you can. Is he top 10, top 15, somewhere in the middle? This is his first year as a head coach, so we don't have a massive sample size yet, but the early returns and what we saw in the preseason and offseason have been intriguing. Drop your rankings in the comments below because I want to see where Cowboys Nation stands on Shady right now. Now, let's get into the travel distance because this is fascinating when you dig into the numbers. The Cowboys ranked 4th this year in total travel distance, which is actually much higher than what Dallas has historically experienced. For years, the Cowboys have been average to below average in this metric, and there are two main reasons for that. First, they never travel internationally. Dallas hasn't played a game outside the United States in over a decade. And second, they play in the NFC East, which means they have built-in divisional games against Washington, Philadelphia, and New York. Those are all relatively short trips. That kind of raises the floor, but lowers the ceiling when it comes to total travel distance. But here's where it gets spicy. Why haven't the Cowboys traveled internationally? Well, for starters, Jerry Jones has pushed against it for years because he doesn't want to give up a home game. And why would he? Home games at AT&T Stadium print money. The concessions, the tickets, the merchandise, the parking, it's a cash machine. Jerry isn't about to sacrifice that revenue. But it's also a two-way street. Other teams don't want to give up Cowboys home games either. Think about it from the Houston Texans' perspective. They play the Cowboys once every 4 years. That game is their most expensive ticket of the entire season, every single time. Whether it's the Commanders, the Panthers, whoever, when Dallas comes to town, that's the highest priced ticket outside of playoff games. So those fan bases never want to give up those lucrative matchups. As the NFL continues to expand internationally, though, this is going to have to change. You can't keep avoiding London, Germany, and Mexico City forever. At some point, Dallas is going to have to make that trip. Now let's talk about what really matters to Cowboys fans. Showing real progress and overcoming the demons of the past. This team has a chance to prove they've changed by beating the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers. Those two franchises have been absolute bogeymen for Dallas. The Cowboys have struggled mightily against both teams, especially in the postseason. We all remember the pain, the heartbreak, the disappointment. Even when Dallas has managed to win some regular season games against these opponents, the playoff failures still haunt this franchise. But imagine this. Imagine the Cowboys go into Lambeau Field or host the Packers at home and get a statement win. Imagine they beat the Niners at AT&T Stadium, a game where they'll probably be underdogs as long as San Francisco stays healthy. Those wins would build confidence not just in the locker room, but across the entire fan base. It would feel different. It would signal that maybe, just maybe, this isn't the same old Cowboys team we've watched fall short for the last 30 years. And what about the Baltimore Ravens game? If the Cowboys beat Baltimore, assuming the Ravens aren't stumbling out of the gate at 0-2 or something, that win will be viewed as Dallas beating a legitimately elite team. The Ravens are considered the favorites to win the AFC North. They've got Lamar Jackson. They've got a stacked roster. If Dallas takes them down, the national narrative immediately shifts to the Cowboys are back. Now, if Baltimore starts the year 0-3, then maybe people chalk it up to the Ravens not being as good as expected. But if both teams are rolling and the Cowboys get that win, it's a massive statement. You'll hear the hype machine crank up to levels we haven't seen in years. That's the kind of signature victory that changes how the entire league views your team. Let's shift gears and talk about potential trades because this is where things get really interesting. Some fans are asking about targeting someone like Frankie Luvu from the Washington Commanders. He fits what the Cowboys want to do schematically. He's a solid linebacker who can cover and play the run. But here's the problem. Do you really think Washington is going to trade him to a division rival? The Commanders just invested heavily in their linebacker core through the draft and free agency. They're not looking to move pieces, especially not to Dallas. And even if Luvu became available, the Cowboys don't exactly have a treasure chest of draft picks to work with. Dallas has a first-rounder which may or may not be tradable depending on the situation, a second-rounder, a third-rounder, and then basically nothing until the 6th round. They're light on draft capital, which severely limits their ability to make aggressive moves. Could the Cowboys wait and see into training camp before pulling the trigger on a trade? Sure. But Luvu isn't going to be cheap, and Dallas has to weigh whether it's worth mortgaging future assets for a linebacker right now. Here's something that drives me crazy every single year. Cowboys fans get accused of saying, "This is our year," when honestly most of us haven't said that in forever. Some of the annoying bandwagon fans might say it. Sure, but go find the clips. Show me the last time the majority of Cowboys Nation genuinely believed without question that this was a Super Bowl team. It hasn't happened in years because this team hasn't earned that confidence. We have generational trauma here. It's been 3 decades since a championship. The emotional roller coaster has beaten us down, yet Cowboys fans remain incredibly loyal. This narrative that somehow Cowboys fans are both bandwagoners and also terrible fans is ridiculous. You can't have it both ways. Bad teams don't have bandwagon fans. Good teams have bandwagon fans. The Cowboys fan base is one of the most loyal in all of sports, and the constant criticism is exhausting. For those of you heading to games this year, especially the Cowboys-Eagles Thanksgiving matchup, you're in for a treat. There's nothing like watching Dallas and Philadelphia battle on Thanksgiving Day. The atmosphere is electric, the stakes are always high, and let me tell you, that turkey tastes so much better when the Cowboys get the win. If you're going to your first game at AT&T Stadium, here's what you need to know. That big screen is absolutely massive. It's unlike anything you've ever seen. If you don't mind spending the money and you're of legal drinking age, get yourself a Cowboy Rita. It's delicious. Yes, it's expensive, but it's part of the experience. The stadium itself is incredible. If you have time and you're not from the Dallas area, do one of the tours the day before the game. I know some players have complained about fans touring the facility, but as a fan, it's an amazing experience. You get to see behind the scenes of one of the most iconic stadiums in all of sports. Now let's tackle the biggest question of all. How many pieces are the Dallas Cowboys realistically missing from being a Super Bowl contender? This is the million-dollar question, and honestly, I want to answer this after the season ends because we need to see how everything plays out. Offensively, I think the Cowboys are right there. The biggest need is finishing drives in the red zone. If Dallas can improve in that area, the offense is good enough to compete with anyone. The fact that the biggest offseason move on offense was a 4th-round backup offensive tackle tells you the front office believes they're close. Defensively, it's a completely different story. The Cowboys know exactly how far away they were last year, and they have addressed it aggressively. Here's a stat that will blow your mind. From the Week 1 starting lineup last season to right now, the Cowboys bring back only 3 starters on defense. DeMarvion Overshown, Malik Hooker, and I guess we're counting the guys who stayed healthy. If you go from the start of training camp, it's even fewer. Dallas knew they were a dozen pieces away on defense, and they've added a ton of new faces. The question now is how many of those additions are actually the right pieces? If everything goes perfectly and every new player hits their ceiling, maybe the Cowboys are already complete. But realistically, even if 6 out of those 12 additions become solid contributors, which would be awesome, Dallas might still be 3 or 4 pieces away from true championship contention. Here's a wild idea that's been floating around. Could Brian Schottenheimer give up play-calling duties to keep someone like Kellen Moore around? Now, my concern with that would be you end up worse at both jobs. You don't improve game management enough, and the play-calling takes a step back. But there is precedent for this. Look at what Sean Payton just did in Denver. He gave up play-calling to Davis Webb to keep Webb in the building for another year. If Sean Payton, one of the most successful offensive minds in NFL history, can swallow his pride and hand over play-calling duties at this stage of his career, why can't anyone else? If it helps retain talent or keeps the staff together for continuity, maybe it's worth considering. Especially if things are good but not great this season and the Cowboys want to keep certain coaches from getting poached by other teams. Let's talk about TJ Watt for a second because there's been buzz about whether he's actually available. I think people are taking that ESPN article about the 2027 offseason and treating it like it's happening right now. TJ Watt is not available right now, but could he be available next year? That's a different conversation. If Pittsburgh was truly ready to move on, they would have traded him before the draft. But Watt is 32 years old. He's coming off a down season by his standards. His contract isn't completely untradeable. The Steelers would take on significant dead money, but it's not impossible. If Pittsburgh decides to blow it up and tank next year, Watt could absolutely be on the market. Would the Cowboys be interested? That depends on the price and what direction Jerry Jones wants to take this team. Finally, let's address Shamar Pete and his chances of making the roster. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but realistically, his chances are pretty low. When in doubt, follow the money. Pete got a $3,000 guaranteed signing bonus. That's it. That tells you everything you need to know about where he ranks in the organization's expectations. He's going to compete at tackle, maybe left tackle, maybe right tackle, but guys like Tyler Guyton, Terrence Steele, Nate Thomas, Cornelius, and Drew Shelton are all ahead of him. That's 6 players minimum. Barring a wave of injuries or someone looking absolutely incredible in training camp, it's tough to see Pete cracking the 53-man roster. The practice squad is a much more realistic goal for him right now, and honestly, that's not a bad outcome for an undrafted free agent. Cowboys Nation, this schedule is loaded with opportunity and danger. The bye week timing, the trap games, the chance to slay old demons against Green Bay and San Francisco. Every single week matters. This team has the talent, they have the coaching, but can they execute when it matters most? Can they avoid the letdowns and capitalize on the winnable games? Can they prove to the world that Dallas is back among the NFL elite? We're about to find out. Drop your predictions in the comments. Tell me how many wins you see. Tell me where you think the Cowboys finish. And make sure you're subscribed because we're going to be breaking down every single game, every single storyline, and every single move this team makes. This is going to be one wild ride, and you do not want to miss a second of it. Let's go, Cowboys.